The 4th episode of Severance Season 2 has finally arrived, and there's a lot to break down surrounding the Apple TV Plus series. After last week's slower episode, this one gave us quite the needed change, both in where the events take place and also in the reveals that we got. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the plot and explaining the ending of Season 2 Episode 4 in the aim to help you guys put together a much greater picture of the Severance narrative. This analysis will contain spoilers, so if you do happen to be someone who hasn't seen the episode yet, then I would recommend watching this video after you've seen it. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on all of my Severance videos coming over the next few weeks, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Severance Season 2 Episode 4. So after an opening episode centred on the innies and a second that focused on the outies to bridge the narrative, last week's instalment unveiled tensions between Lumon and Miss Kobolvig. Also, Mark is now more determined than ever to uncover the truth about Gemma or Miss Casey as he embarks on a journey of reintegration. Now, in episode 4, titled Woe's Hollow, we get a significant change in the setting and along with it, some intriguing reveals. The episode begins with Irving waking up in a daze, finding himself on a frozen lake and bundled in a fur jacket. In front of him looms a cliff where he spots Mark dressed just like him, shouting down. As Irving makes his way across the ice, he encounters Helly and soon after that Dylan, who are both confused to see all their innies somehow gathered outside. At the summit of the cliff, the 4 of them are taken aback to find a television on a stand, just like the one back at Lumon, broadcasting a welcome message. On it, Milchick greets the macrodata refiners, introducing them to their inaugural ORTBO, which stands for Outdoor Retreat and Team Building Occurrence. He describes it as a response to their desires to see the outside world. So they are set to spend the next 2 days in the Dieter Eagan National Forest, named after a mysterious relative tied to a 4th appendix. This is apparently so revered that it's off limits on the severed floor, and Keir Eagan has allegedly stated this hours before his death. So the Macrodats set off on their adventure, given the mission to locate the Scissor Cave, the legendary site where Keir Eagan is said to have triumphed over the 4 Tempers. Milchick further warns them of the nature before wishing them luck. Soon they spot something strange in the distance as they see a man resembling Mark stood on a nearby cliff, gesturing for them to follow. Now, we know that Lumon operates in a peculiar environment where deceased individuals are employed at their headquarters, tending to goats, alongside workers who have no recollection of their job responsibilities. So of course, we would have questions about the nature of a macrodata refiner and whether there could be more to an MDR clone of Mark. We don't know exactly what's happening with this yet, but it does make me think of all the Cold Harbour stuff and the Miss Casey teasers from episode 1. After some confusion over this Mark clone appearance though, the 4 of them decide to follow the eerie directions given by him. As they venture further into the woods, they encounter a clone of Helly who directs them again, this time into a small cave. Within, there's a book adorned with a 4 in Roman numerals on its cover, and Helly flips it open to chapter 1. The opening lines read, "I did not enter this world by myself, I shared the sanctuary of my mother's womb with another, a twin brother named Dieter." The text reveals the deep bond between the twins, yet it also highlights Dieter's growing insistence that Keir's escaped to the woods to live as a poor person. Eventually, Keir gave in and the 2 set off on their adventure to Woe's Hollow. So with this information, the MDR team continues their journey, with Irving reciting the text alongside what appears to be Keir's voiceover. While they're walking, he states, "On that night, Dieter transformed into a vessel of nature, and nature orchestrated Dieter with grace. I had no choice but to listen as he split his lineage upon the soil, suggesting that his brother masturbated during their time in the wilderness." This line prompts Irving and Mark to halt, exchanging glances before they then encounter a doppelganger of Dylan who directs them to the right. Shortly after this, Mark checks in on Helly, asking if she's alright, while Irving observes the duo with a hint of skepticism. He confides in Mark that he suspects Helly is not being truthful about the events during the overtime contingency. Just as their discussion is about to deepen though, the refiners arrive at a river where they stumble upon a mysterious, partially devoured animal carcass that bears a slight resemblance to a seal. Overcome by hunger, Irving momentarily proposes they consume it, but their attention is again diverted. The view of the Woe's Hollow waterfall is just the beginning, as the four of them spot their eerie duplicates looking down at them from the waterfall's edge. Milchick then makes a personal appearance and reveals that they are standing on hallowed ground and that their created copies have been provided to symbolize the ever-present nature of Kyr's twin. When Irving expresses his hunger, Milchick leads them to a camp with 4 blue tents and a fire, where Miss Huang is also waiting for their arrival. Milchick assures everyone that there will be an abundance of meats, and he mentions that the fire will also be perfect for roasting marshmallows. As the group gets comfortable, Helly decides to drop by Irving's tent, bringing along a snow seal as a token since he was feeling peckish before. However, Irving seizes this moment to pose the pressing question that has been lingering on everyone's mind. He asks her, "What did you truly witness during the overtime contingency?" Although she hesitates, Irving encourages her to speak freely. But ultimately, Helly avoids giving a substantial answer and quickly exits the tent. We then cut to Milchick a bit later on, who is reading Appendix 4 to all of them. In this section, Kyr and Dieter find themselves in the forest, eating hares, and Kyr eventually proposes that they head back home, which elicits a sorrowful whimper from Dieter. Milchick reads, "I was looking at him when his eye came out. It popped from the socket, driven by a sudden torrent of pus from his skull." He recounts how Dieter tore at his hair, which was suddenly moss that tore easily from his bleeding scalp. And as the pus from his eye thickened into sap, he turned from his gargling brother and walked to the pool of the hollow, where he knew the waterfall would drown out his brother's cries. It was here that he first encountered the Temper Woe, a gaunt bride half the height of a natural woman. Milchick then shows the illustration of the bride to the MDR team and says that she spoke directly from her eyes, scolding Kyr for promoting Dieter's reckless behaviour, ultimately declaring that now he's no one's brother and a servant to chaos. Milchick wraps up the reading but hints at the next chapter, saying that it's Kyr and the thieving nanny. Irving inquires if Dieter truly met his end in this manner, and Milchick insists that every detail is spot on. But this results in Helly laughing, who says he turned into the forest because he masturbated. Irving and a angry Milchick don't find this funny at all, and Milchick even orders Miss Huang to throw marshmallows into the fire as punishment. After Milchick and Miss Huang then exit, Irving nudges Mark to cut out the longing looks at Helly and mentions the oddity of the supposed night gardener from Helly's outie story at the end of season 1. He presses her for more information, like what the gardener was wearing, but she still remains silent. In response, Mark has a go at Irving for his probing questions, but Irving retorts, pointing out Mark's own infatuated gaze at Helly while they search for Gemma. Helly then blames Irving because of his own grief in losing Bert. In a fit of frustration, Irving grabs a torch and heads out into the woods. Later on, Mark visits Helly in her tent, trying to flirt with her, but she appears downcast and apologizes for possibly diverting his attention from his search for his wife. Mark reassures her that she has already been a great help, and they follow this moment with a kiss and sleep together. Later in the night, Helly confides in Mark about her discomfort with her outie's life, expressing a sense of shame. Mark presses her about it, but reassures her that it's innie Helly that matters to him. Before we leave the scene though, there's a scary moment for Mark as he sees Helly's face morph into Gemma's, and then back to Helly, reminding us of the effects of Mark's reintegration, which he underwent at the end of episode 3 with the help of Ragabi. We don't know how long it's been since that, but in doing so, he aims to send messages in and out of Lumon. This brings us to the end of episode 4, where we get a puzzling mystery surrounding Irving, but also a big answer with Helly. Coming to Irving, he ventures further into the woods, quickly losing his bearings. As darkness envelops him, he stumbles and collapses, slipping into unconsciousness. Then, in a haunting dream, he finds himself amidst the 4 desks of the macro data refinement floor, now overrun by insects and entwined with nature. He takes a seat and suddenly Bert materializes in one of the nearby cubicles. However, on another desk, Irving is startled to see the eerie figure of Bride Woe furiously typing at a computer. As numbers morph into letters on his own screen, he jolts awake and begins his journey back. We know that Outie Bert likely possesses a deeper understanding of Lumon than we do, and this suggests that the dream could imply he's already aware of the functions of macro data refiners. The scene he envisioned, featuring computers in a desolate forest swarming with flies, evokes the kind of imagery one might expect from a subconscious connection to a file titled Cold Harbor. But for now, it does pose interesting questions. Moving back over to Mark, he wakes up to find Helly missing, and Dylan reveals that no one has spotted Irving since he left. Together with Milchick, they set off in search of them, and during this, we catch up with Helly, who has made her way to Woe's Hollow alone, only to be startled by Irving, who approaches her from behind. He confronts her about her harsh words regarding Bert the previous night, reminding her that the true Helly would never act that way. Helly insists that she is indeed Helly, but Irving isn't convinced and realizes that her outie must wield significant influence to reach the severed floor as her. In the moments that follow, Milchick, Mark and Dylan arrive, and Irving yells up at Milchick while he forcefully drags Helly towards the river, declaring that she's an outie and an Eagan. Mark, Dylan and Milchick watch on in horror from the top of the waterfall as Irving plunges Helly's face into the icy water, threatening her life. With no other choice, Helena drops the act and urges Seth to go ahead. Seth, or Milchick, retrieves a walkie-talkie from his coat pocket and commands an unseen figure to remove something called a Glasgow block immediately. As Helena fights in the water, the familiar ding of the missing elevator noise from 2 episodes ago rings out, and Helly R re-emerges. So this moment confirms that Helena Eagan has been masquerading as her innie since her return to the severed floor. I am curious to see if the phrase Glasgow block implies that Lumon has the ability to stop the chip's effects, or if it might be a type of OTC that can toggle the outie on and off. We'll have to see, but it is interesting nonetheless. Anyway, Irving pulls a bewildered Helly from the water, offering an apology. When Milchick reaches the both of them, he has no option but to permanently let Irving go for his murder threat in the pond of Woe's Hollow. And before Milchick instructs him to head off into the forest, Irving tells Dylan to stay strong, warning that all evidence of his time and existence at Lumon will be erased. Milchick then says, "May Kyr's mercy follow you into the eternal dark." Irving continues walking, and just as the moment of erasure approaches, the screen cuts to black. The grin on his face here reveals his acceptance of destiny, having bravely chosen to sacrifice himself to unveil Helena Eagan and reunite with his old friend Helly, even if he won't be there to witness it. So as a whole, we do get a huge reveal with Helena having pretended to be Helly the entire time, but we also have some big unanswered questions. We don't know what will happen to Irving, what was going on with Bride Woe in the dream, what's happening with the clones we saw, and what's really happens to Dieter. While it's hard to answer a lot of these questions, the one I do have some theories on are surrounding Dieter. While the story in the first chapter of the 4th appendix may initially appear to be a religious allegory, Milchick insists that the events are rooted in reality. The story suggests that Kyr, consumed by resentment, may have drowned his brother in the waterfall at Woe's Hollow. His brother's rebellious attitude and disregard for their family's legacy seems to deeply trouble Kyr, ultimately driving him to kill his brother. In taking his brother's life, the founder of Lumon managed to master one of his 4 tempers in Woe. Kyr's portrayal of his brother as wanton and a whore of chaos serves to vilify him, as he condemns not only his disrespect for their lineage, but also his reluctance to return home. The story illustrates that Kyr consistently upheld the highest standards of integrity, while his brother squandered his potential through his misdeeds. Consequently, his brother faced severe consequences, whereas Keir was granted the ability to control one of his more volatile emotions. Whether or not Keir was responsible for his brother's death, Chapter 1 of the 4th Appendix appears to be an exaggerated moral lesson, emphasising the importance of honouring one's heritage and putting in hard work rather than pursuing independence. Keir's references to his employees as his children reflect his desire to foster loyalty and dedication to Lumon. By contrasting himself with his brother, who opted for a path of rebellion, Keir positions both himself and his company as a symbol of order. However, as we learn in the episode, despite her Eagan lineage, Helena appears to dismiss the Dieter narrative with a sense of humour. She chuckles at it around the fire and even pokes fun at the part detailing Dieter's punishment for masturbation. If Dieter were truly a member of the Eagan family, Helena would likely be aware of his story and wouldn't find amusement in a tale that recounts his tragic demise. This raises the intriguing possibility that Dieter might be a fictional character and the story itself could be entirely made up. At the same time though, it's also plausible that the Eagans refrained from talking about Dieter's tale in the outside world due to the way Keir used him as a stepping stone to establish his own legacy. And again, on the flip side, while the narrative in the 4th Appendix clearly serves as a parable designed to convey Keir's values and principles, aiming to reinforce his message about controlling the woad temper, there may be a kernel of truth hidden within. So overall, there's still a lot of questions, but I'm hoping that the remainder of Season 2 will start to give us some answers that really shed light on the main secrets behind Lumon. But that was my video explaining the plot and ending for Severance Season 2 Episode 4. I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the events and smaller details of Episode 4 a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. For much more videos and news on shows like Severance, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, rating, and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.